Well, it's been a few weeks since the last airing of an episode here on the First Branch. In that time, I've had the opportunity to meet with and converse with several viewers, both in person and virtually. They've challenged the approach of this channel's problem solving techniques and its presentation. I'm going to address some of their concerns on this episode of the First Branch. It's been nice to take some time away this past few weeks to get some much needed home repairs knocked off the honey-do list. I know my wife Jennifer is grateful for this as well. I also had the opportunity to surprise my parents for their 50th wedding anniversary by taking two of their grandkids on an impromptu trip to New Mexico. And you'll notice I said their grandchildren and not my kids. I know where I rank in the pecking order of things now. And it's always nice to take a break from time to time from the daily grind. But it's also nice to get back into the swing of things. But one of the things that I had the opportunity to experience during this small hiatus was personal feedback from our episodes. And that's always a good thing. Some comments were good, others were certainly less than flattering. But I am committed to improving this channel, so I'm going to take the good with the bad. It takes thick skin to be in this game. And that right there is going to be the thread that holds this episode together. If I'm willing to look at myself and be honest about my flaws, then it is certainly well within my purview to expect the same from those who say they're not my leaders, but my representatives. But before we get into this episode, I will admit our content will change slightly, but the focus will not. So if conservative political problem solving is what you're looking for, or even if you're a liberal and just want a conservative show to mock and make fun of, cast your vote for this show by hitting that subscribe button, tapping that bell icon, and giving this episode a huge thumbs up to show your support. We'd greatly appreciate it. The comments I received from talking to fans of this show were mostly critical, but that's a good thing. I'm committed to improving my problem-solving skills as well as honing my skills as the anchor of this show. I also have a desire to reach as many people as I can with the solutions we discover in order to help each and every American truly pursue happiness in this great country of ours. So what were some of these critical comments that people made? Well, some were angry with the fact that I was calling out Republican leadership. Others were angry that I was attacking conservative political commentators, and some were worried I was causing an even greater contention between the two dominant political parties. And it's this latter comment I want to address first. And I want to start by saying I am truly sorry if I was ever broadcasting any information in a way that seemed to be divisive towards the two political parties. That is the exact opposite intent of this show. The whole purpose of this show is to highlight just how similar each of these parties actually is, and to encourage each and every American to begin to take back the power we have to govern by consent. That was the original intent of our founding fathers. It was how we declared our independence. Then it's validated by the establishment of a representative Republican, little r, form of government. I mean, the name of this show is designed to show that intent, that we the people are the first and most powerful branch of the federal government. So just to be very clear, I do not wish to create greater division between the two parties. I wish to create greater unity among the people to assert our political might against those in D.C. So again, I truly apologize for sharing information in a way that seemed to be divisive. I will certainly work on this in all of our episodes moving forward. As for calling out Republican leadership, well, calling out people is about as American as apple pie and the Second Amendment. Holding our representatives accountable is the avenue through which we govern by consent. So I'm not going to stop calling out Republican lawmakers that are not encouraging conservative legislation in Congress. I will certainly not let go by me the idea of expanding federal power to reach a perceived Republican goal. This practice is Senator Ted Cruz's go-to tactic. He loves to say, look at the damage that the Democrats are doing. Give us, Republican leadership, more power so we can stop it. Term limits and not repealing the 14th Amendment all the while declaring a wall will result in stopping illegal immigration simply isn't the answer. What he doesn't seem to understand is that as long as the 14th Amendment is the law of the land and the immigration acts are not repealed as well, then there are no illegal immigrants in America right now. And it is under this topic I want to reassert why I'm not afraid to be confronted or challenged. Someone approached me on this very subject and told me that I was just flat out wrong, that the wall would be the only solution, and that the 14th Amendment was just designed to distract us from the real threats to our freedom. So I went back and researched how the 14th Amendment was enacted, and then reread the entire U.S. Constitution again. Why? Because, hey, I could be wrong. But after further research, I will concede this. I wasn't wrong, but my argument was incomplete. So you see, had I not been challenged, I would have never strengthened the truth of my own position on this topic. You see, not only does the 14th Amendment undo Article 1, Section 8, it actually overrides the 10th Amendment as well. And that's the final amendment in our Bill of Rights. So what does the 10th Amendment say? Well, it says this: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Article 1, Section 8 only granted the federal government the authority to determine what it meant to be an American, not what it takes to become one. End of story. Ted Cruz has a law degree, and he is ignoring the law. As an American, I have an obligation to hold him accountable for that, and I have tried. And I will go deeper into that subject on an episode of Politically Unscripted airing this coming Monday on this channel. Now for those political commentators and why I like to call them out so much on this channel as well as Twitter. I'm going to call this the Jerry Rice, Deion Sanders method of encouraging greatness. I started playing competitive sports at the young age of 5 and continued playing competitively up until the age of 26. Then, at the age of 38, I decided I still had some gas in the tank, and so I started entering combatives tournaments for the United States Army, and I stopped that at the age of 40. I have always enjoyed competitive sports, and part of that environment is having to deal with being called out. Now, on a national level, the funnest personalities to watch do this was Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders. Go back and listen to interviews with them as they talk about each other. There's a whole lot of trash talking, but what's more important is the respect they had for each other as professionals. And it is this last statement that means everything to the relationship. I call them out because I want them to be better, and I want them to solve the problems Americans are praying for answers to. Yet that respect is not returned. You see, they only respect likes and influence numbers. You gotta bump them numbers up, Mr. McMurray, on your social media before we think you're important enough for us to talk to. I have reached out to Ben Shapiro, Liz Wheeler, and Michael Knowles personally. And knowing they're capitalists, I've offered them $10,000 plus an all-expense-paid trip to Killeen, Texas, to discuss the future of the Republican Party. I've even sent them copies of my book. Well, 2 of them at least. I couldn't find Ben Shapiro's shipping address, so he didn't get to get an autographed copy. And speaking of my book, I am going to take a few moments here to advertise it. It's called A Political Conscience: Rediscovering Values in American Politics. I start the book out by asking the age-old question: is there such a thing as a moral dilemma? And not to give away any spoilers, but I do answer the question in the book. But you got to buy a copy to find out what that answer is. I also tackle some hard-hitting subjects like the right to life, immigration, crime and punishment, how to successfully integrate members of the LGBT community into the military without affecting readiness, as well as a 4-phased plan to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. There's also a chapter on here on the topic of whether or not Jesus truly was a socialist. This book is available at Amazon.com, and I've placed a link in the description below where you can purchase a copy, which is also available in paperback as well as ebook. There is also a link to a Facebook page where you can read excerpts from selected chapters of this book. So please take the time to visit Amazon and check out a copy. So now I'm going to play a clip of one of those commentators and the challenge as well as the response they made towards an elected official on the opposing side of the political aisle.
As you know, over the last couple of days, I've been offering Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic darling, the future of the Democratic Party, according to Tom Perez, the media hit, media sensation. I've offered her to come on the Sunday special and have a 1-hour discussion. I offered to have a debate with her. I offered to give $10,000 to her campaign. Obviously, that was somewhat facetious, considering that I think what's the election limit, like $7,500, something like that. In any case, I'm not looking to violate the law. I also offered to give that money to charity or to raise money to charity, and she didn't respond, which is her prerogative. She doesn't have to respond. Right? I mean, that's her thing. Fine. One of the funniest things about this is that after I offered Ocasio-Cortez to come on the show, a bunch of leftists who are pretty prominent started emailing me saying, well, why don't you invite me? And I was like, okay, fine. That's great. Like, I'd prefer to have more people on the Sunday special with whom I can have intelligent conversations from the left. Like, let's talk about Norway. Let's talk about Denmark. Let's talk about socialism. Let's talk about what's socialist and what isn't. Let's do all those things. I don't care. Like, that's what I thought this whole debate, this whole area of American life was supposed to be about. I enjoy those conversations. Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took this the wrong way. She took this the wrong way. And instead, here is what she tweeted out in response to my invitation. Quote, just like catcalling, I don't owe a response to unsolicited requests from men with bad intentions. And also like catcalling, for some reason they feel entitled to one. Well, I didn't feel entitled to a response. You don't have to respond. We can write about it if you don't respond, considering that you've called a bunch of people on the right cowards for not supposedly taking on your ideas. Like, there are so many responses she could have given that are better than this. I mean, not to advise her political team, but there are a lot of things you could have done here. You could have just said, nah, not interested. Or, you know what? You're not running for office. I'm not going to debate with somebody who's not running for office. Or, you know, there are better interviews that I can do that reach out to my core constituency. There are like 1,000 better responses than this is just like catcalling.
You see, I'm just issuing the same challenge to them that they've issued to others. They've called them out in the same manner that I've called them out, and they've not had the decency to respond to my request. I've even offered them more of an incentive. As a pilot who owns his own airplane, I've offered to fly them to any number of the great fly-in restaurants we have here in Texas. I'd even pay for their meal. It wouldn't cost them a dime, and they would even make $10,000 in the process. Yet, no response. Why? Well, I can make several assumptions. I don't believe they're cowards. I think that they believe they are too important to bother with someone who doesn't have hundreds of thousands of followers. Again, just more glaring evidence from the right that they are just too big to care about the little guy and gal out there working for America. And just like Ben Shapiro said in his video in regards to Representative Cortez's lack of response, I have the right to comment on your lack of response, especially since I've reached out to each and every one of you twice a week, every week, except for this last week, since the very first week of February. So yes, if you're saying that you're the spokesperson for all things conservative, which Ben Shapiro did say while on the Logan Paul's show, Impulsive, then I'm going to push you to make sure that the conservative movement moves forward. And is that happening right now? No, it's not. People are spending money on the products of the Daily Wire, and they give generously to organizations like the Young America's Foundation. Yet, even by their own admission on their own self-named shows, the leftist agenda is spreading. So what is the net effect of all the riches and the money that you've spent? Well, they're just getting richer. Nothing in D.C. has changed as a result of their actions. All I've done here is create a place where they've been invited to be a part of the process of actually solving the problems Americans have been begging for solutions to. And yet they remain silent toward my offer. Proverbs 27:17 states, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. And Proverbs 27:6 reads, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Challenging those I respect to be more in line with their stated beliefs will only seek to strengthen conservative causes and reverse the trends of the socialist movement in D.C. So yet again, I'll extend my offer to Ben, Michael, and Liz in hopes of striking a spark that will ignite a movement of conservative legislation that will ensure every American has the liberty to pursue a life of happiness in this great country of ours. Thank you again to all of those who support this channel. And thank you to those who continue to challenge me and make me better at my craft. You are a blessing to this channel. Have a great weekend, America, and God bless.